For the blue group, this is the homework check for lesson 73. So what you're going to do is I'm going to explain on the video how to solve one of the problems from each section. So watch the video to make sure that you had the right process. And then I'm going to give you the answers for the rest of the problems in that section. And then you just have to check to make sure you have the correct answer. If your answer doesn't match my answer, you need to go back and rework the problems in that section, and then come back to the video and watch the video for the next section, and then resolve those problems. So it's really important that you pay attention to when I'm explaining the problem, so that if you need to make corrections on the rest of the section, that you'll know what the process is. Make sure to ask for help if you need it. So I will let you know when to pause the video and when to work the problem. So follow along. So the first part for the homework was part 6, and before I start it, we have to always read the instructions. So it says to copy and complete each number family with 3 fractions. So you have to make sure that your answer has 3 fractions, or else we didn't solve it the way that we were supposed to. So for A, they give us 13/15, so we've got 1 fraction already, and then the other number that they give us is a number 1. So I need to change that number 1 into a fraction, and what I already know is that the bottom number for this number family has to be 15. So I can't just do 1 over 1, because even though that's a fraction, when I do a fraction number family, all of my bottom numbers have to match, so this wouldn't be very helpful. So what I'm going to do, get that back here, is I have to change this 1 into a fraction that has the bottom number of 15. And we've done this before, so we're just taking the skill that we've already done and applying it to a number family. So I'm going to cross out the 1, and I'm going to put a fraction bar because that's what I need. And I know that it has to have a bottom number of 15 because that's the fraction denominator that they already gave us. So if I have a fraction that has 15 as the bottom number, what number should go on top so that it equals 1? And what we've already learned is that if the bottom number and the top number match, it's a fraction that equals 1. So now I've changed my 1 into a fraction 15/15ths, so that's going to be the second fraction of the number family for my big number. And then I know here I need to solve for my small number here. So we've already said that the bottom number has to match, so I know that the bottom number of this fraction is going to have to be 15. And then I solve for a small number the same way I would for a regular number family if there was no bottom number. So the same way I have a big number and a small number, and I'm missing a small number, so I have to subtract to find the small number. So I'm going to do 15 minus 13 is 2, so my answer for A is 2/15. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the number for B. So for B, you're supposed to be solving to find the big number, and the number that you're supposed to get for your answer is 43/10. So if you got 43/10, then you can go on to the next section of this video. If you did not get 43/10, I want you to go back and rework this problem using what we talked about here. So if you did not get 43/10 for B, I want you to pause the video, rework the problem, make a correction, and if you need help, come and ask one of the teachers, and then once you have figured it out, then come back for the next part. Okay, so for part 7, I'm going to give you the answers to a few of them. There's a few of them that you're going to have to work on your own. So for A, well, first for the instructions, you have to complete the equation. So for A, it says that 18 equals 20 something 2. So I have to decide if it's plus, minus, multiply, or divide. So if I know that I have 20, if I did 20 plus 2, that wouldn't get 18. So I'm going to try 20 minus 2, and that will equal 18. So for A, you should have minus. The same thing for B. If I add 5 plus 9, I won't get 45. If I subtract, I won't get 45. But if I multiply, I will get 45. For C, the same thing. I can't add or subtract, but when I do 9 times 9, I get 81. For D, we have 47 sevenths. So I have to ask myself, how many times can 7 go into 47 without going over? And if I look at my multiplication chart, I know that 7 times 7 is 49, so that's too much. So it's going to go in 6 whole times, because 7 times 6 is 42. And then I count up to see how many more I needed to get to 47. So from 42 to 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, I'll have 5 more. So 6 and 5 sevenths is equal to 47 sevenths. For E, you have 120 over 6. And if I look at my multiplication chart, 6 times 20 equals 120. There's nothing left over because 6 times 20 is exactly 120. So for E, I just have the whole number of 20. For F, when I look at 12 is a whole number. And if I have the bottom number of 1, I know that the top number will be 12 because 12 over 1 is the same thing as a 12 as a whole number. In order to figure out when I have a denominator of 3, I have to do 3 times 12, and 3 times 12 gives me 36. For the next one, I would have to do 15 times 12 in order to figure out the top number. And once I do that, I have 180. All right. And then for G, you should have 54 for 30, 48, and the last one you'll have 42. All right, if you have any questions about how we got to any of these, make sure to ask the teacher. So just check to make sure that you did these correctly, and then move on to the next section. All right, so looking at part 8, it says to copy each problem and write the complete equation. And so I see that we've got some subtraction and we've got some multiplication, and we know that those are solved differently. So let's look at A first. So A, they show us that 12 fifths minus a whole number of 1. So if I have 12 fifths and I need to do a subtraction, I know that I can't just take away the whole number of 1. I need to make it into a fraction. And I know that if I just had 1 over 1, that is a whole number changed into a fraction, but my bottom numbers don't match. So I have to change this to match. So I know that 1 times 5 will give me a bottom number of 5. And whatever I do to the bottom number, I have to do to the top. So 1 times 5 is 5. So you could write it out this way if you want, but if you just know that 1 changing into a fraction that equals 1 with a bottom number of 5, my top number will be 5 also. And then you just go ahead and subtract, and you'll get 7 fifths. Okay? Once you're solving B, when you have to do the multiplication ones, I know that I can just put a number 1 underneath, because the 6 has a whole number, has a hidden number 1 underneath. But this time, I don't have to change the bottom number, because when you're multiplying, it's okay that the bottom numbers don't match. So I just do straight across the top and find my answer, and straight across the bottom and find my answer. So for B, you're going to have 48 thirds. All right, and then for the rest of them, I'm just going to give you the answer. If your answer does not match my answer, you need to go back and rework the whole problem, showing your work how to do that. Don't just copy down my answer, and because that's not a correction. Going back and reworking the problem and showing your work that you can get to the same answer, that's making a correction. All right, so for C, you're going to have 6 fourths. For D, you're going to get 5 sevenths. For E, you're going to have 24 twentieths. And for F, you're going to have 0 fourths. Okay, so go ahead and check your answers. If you need to, go back and rework the problems to show your work to get the same answer. So pause the video and then come back for the next section. All right, so the last section that we have for our homework for lesson 73. First, we have to read the instructions. So it says for each problem, draw the diagram and then figure out the area. And so what that means is that if they're describing a shape, I need to draw that in order to get complete credit for a full answer. I can't just work the area and find the answer for the area, because then I didn't read the directions and follow through the whole way. So it says here for A that a fence is 11 feet high and 290 feet long. So if I drew a box like this, that's not really showing the diagram that they're describing, because here, the picture I drew, the top and sides are pretty much equal. But I can see here that 11 and 290 are really not equal at all. One of them is much, much bigger than the other one. So if I know that this is 11 feet high, so I make it that high, 290 feet is going to be much longer. So it's going to be very high, or it's not going to be very high, but it's going to be very long. So your diagram should look something like this, because 11 is much, much shorter than 290. And then in order to make sure I have a complete diagram, I have to label my sides with the number and the unit. Now that is the complete diagram. So we've now done the first part of the directions. Now that I have an accurate diagram and it's labeled, now I can figure out the area. And to figure out the area of a rectangle, I have to multiply. So I'm going to do 290 times 11. And so I'll go through, and I'm just doing double-digit multiplication just like we've always practiced. So I have 0 times 1 is 0, 1 times 9 is 9, and 2 times 1 is 2. Going to the second level, I always put my automatic first 0, and now I'm going to do here and go back to this, then this, then this. So I've got 1 times 0 here, which is 0. 9 times 1 is 9, and 2 times 1 is 2. And then I add them together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 9 plus 0 is 9. 2 plus 9 is 11. I carry the 1. So I have 3,190. So I'm going to put my answer here, because I'm not done yet until I have the units. So I know that I started out working with feet, so I know that it's going to be feet, but when you do area, it has to be square feet, because we have now figured out how many feet cover this whole area on the inside with equal squares. So for A, you should have 3,190 square feet. For B, I want you to draw your diagram. I'll check your diagram. I'm not going to show you what it looks like, but I want to see you fix it to see that one of them is 34 and one of them is 78, to figure out which side should be long and which side should be shorter, twice as long, half as long, whatever. But for B, your area should be 2,652 square meters. All right, so if you need to, pause the video, check your answer for B, make sure your diagram is accurate. This is the last section for the homework, so when you are done, go have a teacher check to show that you made all your corrections before moving on to lesson 74.